Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A couple questions for the good chair of the Education Committee through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Fleischman, please prepare yourself. Please proceed, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To follow on the line of questioning that Representative Neal had concerning Section 262, I wanted to kind of get an understanding of the concept of shovel-ready and what the good chairman defined that as and how we understand that for the projects that were removed from the list. Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Fleischman.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Speaker. As it was explained to me by the Bureau of School Construction, projects that were moved into Section 261 would simply not move forward in this year if we had included them in this bill. So in other words, we could have left them precisely as drafted in the priority schools list, but the project would not move forward till next year. Given the state's fiscal crisis and low bonding cap, we thought it was prudent to therefore move the items onto next year's list. Through you.
Representative France.
Thank you for that answer. So to understand the expectation of the Bureau of School Construction, as to clarify, was that no construction costs would be incurred before the July 1st, 2017 deadline, which would be in the effective date of the follow-on school construction bill. Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Fleischman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, I think that is a fair interpretation of the Bureau's position. Through you.
Representative France.
I thank you for that clarification. And I just want to touch on two projects in my district. The timeline that is in effect is that the request for proposals plan to go out in January and sign a contract in March of 2017 prior to the July 2017 effective date of the next school construction bill. And what that effectively has done is shifted the burden of risk to the town, because the town now has the liability for the entire project if they continue forward. And their only alternative is either to not do the project or delay the project, which incurs costs of several $1 million, which in effect reduces the scope of the project. So my concern, and the reason I rise to talk, while I will in the end support the bill going forward, my concern is in the whole process of how these projects got removed. And there was no discussion with the town, either from the Department of Administrative Services or from the legislative side of the discussion. And I think we need to look at that process so that this doesn't happen, so that we're not basically putting our towns at risk for the entire project with no guarantee from the state that there would be reimbursement at some point. In sitting down with the Commissioner Curry twice, the latest time, one of the things that she proposed and has been in discussion with is taking these 11 projects that were removed and potentially bringing them forward early in the next session so that they would be set aside instead of waiting to the end of session. That would relieve some of the burden on the town, as in my case, and I'm sure there are several other projects in the same position, that will sign a contract obligating, in our case, $66 million with no guarantee of reimbursement from the state until after that is done. And so I would commend the legislature, the Education Committee, to consider that as a proposal for these 11 projects, assuming they still remain eligible for consideration, to take them up early in the session such that the towns that are going to actually incur construction costs before July of 2017 can go forward with some confidence that the state is going to support them financially. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.